For the first 5 episodes of What If, there was something I suspected but wasn't sure about. It has to do with the Watcher. And I wasn't sure about it because the show seems to enjoy finding inventive ways of presenting him, obscuring him in the distance, or using different color palettes, or their default, which is him just looking like the universe. I couldn't be 100% about it, which is the reason I didn't mention this in the last video. Well, that was one reason. But episode 6 confirmed it. At least I hadn't seen it confirmed anywhere else until now. Marvel has race-bent the Watcher into a black character. Presumably, and this is just a guess, but I suspect I'm not far off, to have the Watcher's skin color conform to Jeffrey Wright, who voices the character. And, coincidentally, the first episode where we see him like this is also an episode spotlighting black characters and Wakanda and all that stuff. And as long as we're making connections here, if you need more convincing that this change wasn't done for no reason, there's a moment in this episode during a scene where Wakanda's in danger because of a plot enacted by Killmonger, where if you look very closely, you can see the Watcher's eyebrow twitching a little bit, as if he's trying to keep himself from becoming emotional or getting upset. You know, because the black community is in danger. People like him. I'm not saying for sure that's what's going on here. I might be reading way too much into this. But that's what it seemed like. So, was this change to Uatu politically motivated? Kind of looks that way, doesn't it? This practice is something that's been popping up more and more recently, and it's something that just baffles me. I don't know when this happened, but at some point it became frowned upon for actors to voice characters of a different skin color. And it's interesting here because there are recent high-profile cases of this happening in reverse. Hank Azaria, who famously voiced Apu on The Simpsons for many, many years, vacates the role because he felt it wasn't acceptable for a white person to be voicing an Indian character. Also, I guess there were issues raised about stereotypes, and that's a whole other thing. Admittedly, I haven't read too much about it. Mike Henry, who voiced Cleveland on Family Guy for years, vacates the role because he no longer thought it was right for a white person to be voicing the character, and persons of color should play characters of color, I think were his exact words. So they recast, and now going forward, a person of color will be voicing Cleveland, and I don't know what's happening with Apu. So on the one hand, we have white actors vacating the role of a character of color so the producers can cast an actor who conforms to the character. But in this case, we have a black actor cast to voice a canonically white character, and rather than him choosing not to take the role so Marvel could find an actor with the same skin color as the character, they race-bent the character to conform to the actor. And this raises a bunch of questions. For starters, why is this even a thing at all? It's animation. You're casting a voice, not a skin color. For example, Kevin Michael Richardson voiced the Joker on The Batman. I don't recall there being a big fuss about that. They cast him because he had the right voice for the role. Joker was still bleach white, and nothing needed to be changed as far as I know. The characters on Netflix's Voltron were multi-ethnic. In several cases, the voice actors didn't match the characters, and no one seemed to have a problem with it then. So why is this an issue now? Secondly, why are we applying this to one set of people and characters, but not to others? I don't know what the rules of this practice are, but it seems like they're very selectively enforced. Now, I'm not making any accusations here, but your double standard is showing, Hollywood. Know that I see you. Thirdly, this got me thinking about the whole business of race-bending / gender-swapping characters. When it feels unnecessary and done for the wrong reasons, and when you can pull it off and have the audience accept it. I personally have a set of rules I apply to this as far as when it works and when it doesn't. I'm going to do a separate video about that in the future. And the other reason why I waited until now to bring this up is because I wanted to see what they did with it first. Because on paper, you can race-bend the Watcher and nothing important about him has really changed. He's still the Watcher, he's still the character we know him to be, he's just a different color now. But that's no longer the case once you show him watching the events unfold in Wakanda in episode 6 and trying not to get emotional about it because he might feel some kind of personal connection to it due to everyone's skin tone, if that's what's happening there, and I'm not saying it is, but I do find it curious that this episode in particular was the one where we get confirmation that the character is black now, and 1 + 1 does still equal 2, because at that point you've changed something about the character as a result of the race bending, which really shouldn't happen unless there's a damn good reason for it. And no, political reasons don't count. At least they shouldn't. But as I talked about in the last What If video, these writers do a lot of things for political reasons. And that's not the only reason why this show and this episode are bad, but it's one of them. There's also plenty of that bad writing I talked about before. Now, I actually did give them some points for episode 6 early on, because surprisingly, Killmonger was still Killmonger. He wasn't instantly redeemed or idealized or put up on a pedestal to the point of absurdity. The villain was allowed to remain a villain, despite the fact that he happens to be a black man. That's encouraging, but it's about as far as they got before things turned political again. Because sure enough, Killmonger in this episode is not just a villain, now he's the bestest villain ever. The machinations this guy concocts to enact his dastardly scheme are insane. They're ridiculously complex and rely heavily on certain key people, including Tony Stark and the King of Wakanda, being complete idiots. But by God, he pulls it off. He puts himself in a position to save Tony from the Ten Rings and expose Obadiah Stane's murder plot, ingratiating himself to Tony so much that Tony makes him the new Stark Industries COO on the spot. It turns out Killmonger's also an engineering genius who invented these unmanned robotic combat drones, which Tony puts the finishing touches on and then produces for him. Then he manipulates other people so he can kill Rhodey, kill T'Challa so easily it's hysterical, by the way, and acquire enough vibranium to build himself an army of these drones. Now, to Tony's credit, he does actually figure out what Killmonger's up to at that point and attacks him with one of those very same drones. But Killmonger is such an unstoppable, super amazing badass that he effortlessly defeats this bulletproof death machine and then kills Tony anyway. Although, for the life of me, I don't know how that happens. He spears Tony through the shoulder, and that's how Tony dies. From a shoulder injury. Now, I'm certainly no doctor, but I'm pretty sure there are no vital organs in the shoulder, and yet Tony gets speared through there, and he dies within seconds. Which is really stupid. A wound like that would mess him up, sure, but it wouldn't kill him. At least not that quickly. You might have to wait for him to bleed out, which would have taken quite a while, seeing as how there was no blood. Not one drop. Maybe Disney Plus wouldn't allow them to show blood. Fine. Find another way to kill him then. Preferably one that's less asinine than this. So Tony's death is blamed on the Wakandans, and the military totally buys this even though Killmonger's fingerprints are on the murder weapon. He single-handedly manipulates Stark Industries and the US government into a war with Wakanda, then manipulates Claw so he can find Wakanda, kills Claw, presents Claw to the king to prove he's on their side, then uses his super awesome badassness to destroy the army of attack drones he was secretly controlling when they show up, to prove himself to the women in the royal family who were the only ones suspicious of him after the king fell for his con like a chump. He installs himself as the new Black Panther, his plan goes off without a hitch, and then in the last 60 seconds, Shuri shows up in Pepper's office having magically discovered proof of Killmonger's evil plot off screen. So Killmonger manages to manipulate the entire world pretty much, has everybody wrapped around his finger, only to get outfoxed by Shuri, who was probably like 11 or 12 at this point. Are you kidding me? This is something the writers really like to do. In a lot of these episodes, there's some kind of last-minute twist at the very end that paints the events of the episode in a different light or something. So far, they've all been really stupid or poorly executed, and this was no different. Shuri just discovers proof. Just like that. Deus Ex Machina, it's that simple. There was no subplot where she was searching for proof, no chain of events that led to her finding it. She just suddenly has it with zero buildup because I'm a genius. But let's not kid ourselves. It's not because she's a genius, it's because she's a girl. And if we're telling a story about how a man does all this super awesome, albeit evil stuff, it has to be a girl who takes him down. Every male character either falls for Killmonger's con, hook, line, and sinker, or becomes suspicious only to quickly get killed, but all the women are exempt from this. Pepper's always glaring at Killmonger disapprovingly. Okoye, Shuri, and the Queen don't trust him, so he has to work extra hard to try to win them over. And the Queen is something else, too. She's another character who gets elevated to god-tier status just because of her lady parts. Now she's not not just the Queen of Wakanda, she's also a general and a soldier. In the battle with the drones, she's on the front lines, leading the army, fighting tooth and nail alongside the Dora Milaje, while the king is back in the palace where it's safe. What f***ing sense does it make to have the queen of your entire country going into battle like this where she could easily get killed? I don't know what the queen's backstory is, if she was a Dora Milaje herself before she was the queen or something, but shouldn't she be with the king in a secure position so you're not putting your leadership, this member of the royal family, at risk of dying? It's not like she has a Black Panther suit of her own to protect her. Not that she needs one, apparently, since the Wakandans cut through the battle drones like tissue paper. This is stupid! But as the writers have proved many times over these first 6 episodes, they don't care if something is stupid, and they don't care if it doesn't make sense, because politics come first. So, even though Killmonger is the bestest villain ever, you gotta put an asterisk next to that, because the women are just a little more badass, just a little more clever, just a little more on the ball than he is, because anything less would be sexism. So this episode was the perfect storm, really. It had racial politics, gender politics, politics in general, and a healthy dose of stupidity to boot. Then you've got the inexplicable race bending of the Watcher, which the writers were clearly trying to make some kind of a statement with, and out of all the reasons you could cite for making a change like this to a long-established character, that really shouldn't be one of them. So not only is there double standard showing, but this show's lack of standards is showing too. What If is not good, I'm sorry. The writing is bad, the stories are bad, the writers' politics are dictating way more than they should, and this episode did nothing to change my mind about any of that. All that aside, my rules for race bending / gender swapping a character, when does it work, when does it not work, I'm gonna have to make that video now. Not sure when I'll get to it, I may have to think on that one for a while, but yeah, that's a topic that seems especially relevant at the moment. So watch out for that video in the future, and thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments section. Ding the bell icon and follow my social media so you'll always know when I upload new stuff. I also have a live streaming channel, the links are down there. Thumbs up the video, share, subscribe, make sure you're still subscribed, and I'll be back with more soon. So stay tuned for that, do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you next time.